Hey guys, it's your one and only maths favorite teacher once again. So on this session, I will be basically helping you and teaching you how to master trigonometry, 2 dimension and 3D. So as you can see here on the figure, they're saying in the figure below, SPQ is equals to alpha, and then PQS is equals to beta, PQS equals to beta given there, and PQ is equals to H. So we can actually see that whatever they're telling us on the given information is given in the diagram. And then they're telling us that PQ and SR are perpendicular to RQ. And then on number 7.2.1, they say determine the distance SQ in terms of alpha, beta, and H. So now here we'll be basically doing what? We'll be basically doing 7.3.1. So I'm just going to say 7.3.1. So here basically, for us to determine the distance of SQ, what are we going to do? We're going to make sure that we use sine rule. We're going to use what you call sine rule, right? We're going to use sine rule. If you still remember, we're going to use sine rule, right? That sine rule, we're going to use it in what? In triangle what? In triangle PSQ. PSQ. So in triangle PSQ, we'll be basically using sine rule in order to do what? To find SQ, right? So this is what we're going to do. We can also write it like this and say in triangle what? PSQ. In triangle PSQ, what happens in triangle PSQ? So you're gonna say PSQ, P S Q plus angle P plus angle PQS, angle PQS, it's equals to what? We know that that is gonna be equals to 180 degrees. So the reason why it's equals to 180 degrees, this is sum of angles in a triangle, right? So you can just write sum of angles in a triangle. So that is going to be sum of angles in a triangle. And then going to say PSQ, we write it. And then plus, we can see that angle P, we're given alpha. You can just write alpha there to simplify your work. Plus, and then with regards to angle PQS, we are given B. So you'll write angle B. It's equals to 180 degrees. And then here I'm just going to say PSQ. Since I want to get angle PSQ, I'm just going to write it as it is. PSQ. Sorry about that. It's equals to, then you write 180. Then I'm going to take every angle to the other side. Then you know that when I'm taking alpha on the other side, it changes the sign to become minus alpha. I'm going to take beta that side, it changes the sign to become minus beta. And then therefore, we know that angle P S Q is going to be equals to, then I can start by writing 180 degrees. And then one thing that is very important with regards to here, I'm going to take out negative as a common factor. So when I take out negative as a common factor, I'll be left with negative, open bracket, then it will be what? Alpha, then it will be plus beta. So that's your PSQ, right? And then we're going to use sine rule now, right? After getting that, we're going to use sine rule. We're going to use what we call sine rule. So you can just write it here. We're going to use sine rule, right? We're going to use sine rule. So now as we're using sine rule, I'm now applying sine rule. It simply means to say, I'm going to say what? I'm going to say sine P, which is the sine of angle P, divided by SQ. It's equals to what? The sine of angle PSQ sine of angle PSQ divided by what? PQ. So it's very important that you know when do we use sine rule, right? And then basically based on what we are actually just going to substitute the angles, right? So we know that this is going to be sine, and then if you remember, your angle P, it was given by what? By alpha. So I'm just going to write alpha replacing angle P over, and then SQ, I leave it as it is. I'm just going to write SQ here, right? And then I'm just going to say equals to, and then with regards to this one, I'm going to say sine, right? And then now we basically check this angle on this angle. What do we have? PSQ. So now let's check PSQ and see what basically do we have with regards to PSQ. So remember, PSQ is this one. Actually, it's even here. PSQ is this one. Is this one that we got right here. So we can see that in a place of PSQ, I'm just going to write what? Raise. Can write 180 degrees and then minus into what? Alpha plus beta. Alpha plus angle beta. Close bracket, close brace. That's basically what you have. And then continuing, we can actually see that from this, I'm going to say divide by what? With regards to PQ. So now let's check what is PQ on the diagram. So you can actually see that on the diagram, it's this one. We're given H. Do you see? So I'm just going to write, in a place of PQ, I'm going to write H. So I'm just going to write H. And then with regards to this, I'm just going to say sine alpha, because we need to simplify it into the furthest form. So I'm just going to say sine alpha over SQ. I'm one person when I teach maths, I don't like jumping steps. So that's why it's a bit long, but at least you will be able to understand up until you master it. And then we master it, there's no need of you writing some of the steps. So now we know that sine of 180 minus that angle, it will be sine of that angle. So it will be the sine of what? We'll be left with sine of alpha plus beta. If you know, alpha plus beta. Reason being is because of, when you look at this part, sine of 180 minus an angle, we know that will be basically on what? On the second quadrant. Let me show you. Remember, this is all students take coffee, right? And then you know that according to the Cartesian plane, let me show you, let me teach you. According to the Cartesian plane, here we are basically having 180. And then when you say sine of 180 minus, it's clockwise, we are on the second quadrant. On the second quadrant, sine is positive. That's why we are having sine of alpha plus beta, right? And then with regards to that, we're going to divide by h. And then when you arrive here, since now we want to solve SQ, we're going to cross multiply and simplify SQ in the simplest form. So it will be h times sine alpha. It will be h, the sine of what? The sine of alpha. It's equals to, then SQ times sine of alpha plus beta. It will simply be what? It will simply be SQ, the sine of alpha plus beta, right? And then from here, remember, we want SQ. So when we want SQ, math says what I do on my left-hand side, I should also do it on my right-hand side. So I'm just going to divide by the sine of alpha plus beta both sides. Alpha plus beta both sides, because math says what I do on the left-hand side, I should also do it on the right-hand side. So let's divide by sine of alpha plus beta, right? And then after this, remember that this sine alpha plus beta will cancel this sine alpha plus beta. And then here, what are you left with? It simply means to say you'll be left with h sine of alpha, all over sine of alpha plus beta, alpha plus beta. It's equals to, and then on the right hand side, you are left with SQ. Can you see? And then you are done finding SQ. So to simplify it, writing it in a proper way, you can just say, therefore, SQ, it's equals to what? H, the sine of alpha divided by what? Divided by sine of alpha plus beta. So that's your answer, right? Because let's go back to actually the question. You can actually see that this is the distance SQ that we actually got, right? So I'm just going to try to continue with this on my space right here. So let me continue with this here so that I don't do a lot of scrolling. So I'm just going to continue with doing the second question right here. On the second question, let's see what they want. So they say 7.2.2. They say show that RS is given by H sine alpha cos. Going to do, guys, based on whatever I was showing you, this is what you're going to do. So that is 7.3.2, right? So the first thing that you're gonna do, you're gonna say in triangle what? In triangle SRQ. SRQ. So that is the triangle that we are actually working with, right? So you know that PQS, angle PQS plus angle SQR plus angle SQR is equals to what? It's equals to 90 degrees. Reason it's given. This one is given. This one is given. Let me show you on the diagram. It's given. So it's this one on the diagram. So when you go to the diagram, you can actually see that that angle is this one, right? Given being 90 degrees. And then since now you know that angle PQS is given by B. So I'm just gonna substitute B plus, and then you want SQR. So I'm just gonna leave it as SQR. It's equals to 90. Then you make angle SQR the subject of the formula. You're gonna say therefore angle SQR is equals to, then you write 90 degrees because that's what you have on the far right. Then when you take beta on the other side, remember it's going to be what? Negative B. It's going to change the sign. So you write negative B, right? So that's your first starting point on having SQR. And then since now you're having SQR, you're going to simply concentrate on this triangle here and use sine rule. You're going to simply use this triangle right here and simply use the sine rule. You're going to use sine rule on this green triangle, which is triangle SRQ. Do you see that green triangle that I was actually drawing? So we're going to use the sine rule. The reason being is because of sine, we know that that's going to be what? That's going to be, want us to solve RS, which is the opposite side. And then SQ is the one that we actually prove. You will now understand. And then this basically what's going to happen. So let's now use the sine rule, right? So we're going to say sine angle SQR is equals to what? It's equals to RS, the one that they want us to prove for the second question, divided by what? SQ. So SQ is the one that we actually proved, divided by SQ. Divided by SQ. So there's no need of panicking when you deal with this question because as you can see here, SQ, this one, is the one that we actually proved right here. Do you see? So now we continue. I'm going to say sine, and then with regards to having SQR. So SQR actually, we did find it somewhere somehow. Yeah, there you go. This is the angle that I'm looking for, which is this one. So in place of this SQR, we're going to actually substitute by what? 90 minus beta. So I'm just going to say 90 degrees and then minus b. Do you see? Then now you continue with everything. So it's equals to RS, which is the one that they want us to prove. And then here we're supposed to substitute SQ, being this one, because you can actually see that we normally have SQ. So you know that math doesn't allow us to have many division signs, right? So for now, I'm just going to reserve it. Then I'm going to substitute it later. Let me just leave it as SQ so that I avoid having many division signs because math doesn't allow us to have many division signs. And then coming back to this one, sine 90 minus beta, it changes the sign according to co-ratios. It will be what? Cos beta. So you must remember this. It will be cos B. It's equals to, then I write RS over SQ. So there's no need of you panicking because we now have SQ. But before I substitute SQ, let's simplify it into the first form. So I'm just going to cross multiply SQ times cos beta. It will be what? SQ. Then that will be cos beta. Because I did say you multiply SQ and cos beta, you get SQ cos beta. It's equals to then 1 times RS. That will be RS. And then on the next step, that's when actually you can substitute this SQ. Because this SQ is this one that you now have. This one. You see? So we can now substitute SQ. So our SQ is given as what? SH sine alpha. I'm using a different color so that you can remember. H sine of alpha divided by what? Sine of alpha plus beta. So I'm just going to write alpha plus beta. Then I'm just going to say it's equals to what? RS. It's equals to RS. So we found RS. So if you want, you can just simply write this properly by just saying therefore RS, it's equals to what? And mind you, let me show you something. Don't forget to write this as well, because it's part and parcel of this, right? So here, where I'm putting a star, we're supposed to write it properly. We're supposed to just write it here. So don't forget to write it. Don't forget to write it. Don't forget to write it, right? So now let's continue. So remember, we also have cos beta. I'm just writing it with the red color so that you can remember this, right, guys? Then yes, it's equals to RS. Before I proceed, let me double check if we didn't leave anything. SQ, that is H sine alpha over sine alpha plus beta, yes. Now everything is fine. Then remember, this will be H, when you write it properly, that will be H, the sine of alpha, cos beta, divided by what? Sine of alpha plus beta. It's equals to RS. So now we can just say, therefore, can write it properly. Therefore, RS, it's given as what? As H, the sine of alpha, cos of beta, all over the sine of what? Alpha plus beta. You see. So now let's double check if our answer is correct. Guys, it's very important that you go and double check because we need this, right? So RS is H sine alpha cos beta over. So we're proving it's actually now correct, right? It's a one and only maths favorite teacher once again, guys. Stay tuned for more.